Hello everyone, back with another video that isn't a joke this time. A few weeks ago, I set up a community poll where you people voted which aspect of the Slayer will become the topic of the next Doom power scaling video. 72% of you people picked speed, so this video will be going over the speed scaling I've made for the Doom Slayer across his history, just like the AP scaling from the AP trilogy, but this will be the only video on the subject, given there is much less to talk about here. The AP trilogy does explain some things that apply to the contents of this video. So if you're wondering why Quake stuff is being used, why the Book of Saris is being mentioned, then watch those videos and check the comments, because they do have some pinned comments that further explain stuff. The only thing that requires explanation with this video is that I will be using terms that originate from VSBW, but I won't actually be using that website's standards, especially for the non-finite speed levels. I'll just be using the general concept of those non-finite speed levels, not specific to any website, but I will say that they should still be applicable to them, I guess. As for why I won't be using VSBW, is because I just don't trust them. They like to change their standards a lot just to spite certain verses like Dragon Ball to keep from reaching higher up levels, and really that's what most of their standards are for. So yeah. As for how I will be approaching this, I'll be going over some finite speed scaling, which will pretty much be exclusive to Doom Guy at the very beginning of his career, just like the wall level scale I mentioned in the first video. But afterwards, I'll be going over the non-finite speed levels and going over various feats that can be used to argue the Doom Slayer to qualify for them. Just like with his attack potency, Doom Guy at the very beginning of this series is blatantly superhuman. Early on in his career, he was able to dodge and run past shotgun blasts at point-blank range, several blasts coming from 3 different zombie soldiers. The muzzle velocity of a shotgun is approximately 1,560 feet per second, or 475 meters per second, which puts Doomguy at this point at supersonic levels of speed. This is backed up with him being able to react to and dodge the rockets and the Cyber Demon. The muzzle velocity of a standard RPG is 300 meters per second, which, while not supersonic, is still considerably high in the Supersonic Plus, practically below the baseline for supersonic. Moving up to the most impressive and last finite speed feat I'll be covering here. At the very end of the Doom comic, he seemingly dodges a laser beam from the Cyber Demon. I have seen some people say that he is just aim dodging, but I doubt that. He moved before the Cyber Demon. If he moved before the Cyber Demon fired the laser, then why didn't the Cyber Demon just aim his arm cannon to where the guy is now? Cyber Demons aren't really known for their intelligence, but they aren't dumbasses like that. Assuming this laser is genuine light, this would mean an early Doom guy easily reaches relativistic levels of speed, if not just faster than light. So when it comes to finite speed levels, the version of Doom guy that should be the absolute slowest is supersonic to FTL at best. Now into the non-finite speed stuff, which is where the good stuff begins. Beyond this point, I won't be going over any form of finite measurement. No meters per second, no miles per hour, no anything like that, because of how grand these speed tiers are. If you want an in-depth explanation of them, watch Surfphone's video on them, which will be linked in the description. For my scaling, there are only two of them that are worth being mentioned. Not because Doomguy can't reach the other levels, but because these speed tiers suit his non-finite speed feats the best. Firstly, immeasurable speed. This will be the most prominent out of the tiers mentioned here. Essentially, immeasurable speed is speed that isn't bound by linear time. The most common form of this tier is being so fast that you can travel through time, and this can also be achieved by traveling in realms or scaling to characters that transcend time. There are some verses out there that equate being able to move through time by sheer speed to just traveling at the speed of light, but cases like these are few and far between and shouldn't be a standard assumption until it is established in the verse. Even then, most verses say that a character is moving through time by moving faster than the speed of light. So, secondly, we have irrelevant speed. Irrelevant speed is being so fast that the concept of speed doesn't apply to you. This is most commonly obtained with characters that transcend the concept of time and space because they are pretty much the components of speed, distance, and time. This can also be achieved by moving in places that also transcend the concept of space-time. What makes this different from immeasurable speed is the fact that it is centered around the concept of speed. Concept in this case being an abstract force that makes a certain thing possible to begin with and is therefore superior to all aspects of that thing. With all of those described, let's talk about how Doomguy and later on the Doomslayer fit into these. As said earlier, Doomguy scales to cyber demons, if not above them, given how slow as shit they are in comparison to him. If you watched the first video in the AP trilogy, you would remember how bosses in Doom 3, most notably cyber demons, are described as evils that transcend time and space in the novel Maelstrom, or however you pronounce that. This fits perfectly into the definition of immeasurable speed and would mean that classic Doomguy, long before he became the Doomslayer, can reach immeasurable speed. Not only qualify for immeasurable speed, but is many times above what we would call baseline immeasurable speed, being able to easily outmaneuver cyber demons. In case you don't know what that would mean, it essentially boils down to being faster than other characters that happen to qualify for immeasurable speed. Also, if you watch the first video in the AP trilogy, you will know that Doomguy increases in speed whenever he fights and kills things. Of course, Doomguy manages to kill the cyber demon in the Tower of Babel, and would go on to kill dozens of more cyber demons and thousands of other kinds of demons. So by the end of this era, Doom 64 in this case, he would be even faster than this and would be unbelievably high in immeasurable speed. This will be the slowest version of the Marine I will be covering here today, and in comparison to the rest of the eras, this Doomguy is slow as hell. Next up, we have Doomguy during his time in the Arena Eternal, the Quake 3 era. Without going into any feats, we can already solidly confirm that Doomguy at this point is much faster than before. Throughout this era of his life, he spent an eternity fighting in the arenas of Vadrgar, fighting for his life through unrelenting battle. Again, Doomguy increases in speed the more he fights and kills things, so that immeasurable speed scaling you just laid out before just got a huge buff. There are two ways to do this. Either he spent a finite but still really long time in the Arena Eternal fighting, or he literally spent an eternity, an infinite amount of time fighting in the Arena Eternal. As absurd as the latter option is, it's actually quite possible here, given where this takes place and the circumstances surrounding the situation Doomguy is in. This all takes place in the Dreamlands, an extra-dimensional realm where time is already wonky, with parts of the realm being said to be at the quote unquote end of time. So time is already unreliable, especially considering the gladiators themselves, which are taken across all of time and space by the Vadrigar. The Vadrigar are also purposefully making the gladiators fight forever, and whenever one dies, they're just brought back to life. Even ignoring this, Doomguy at the time of Doom 2 has achieved immortality, so he could genuinely go on forever if he wanted to. The possibility that he genuinely fought forever is very well possible, and that has huge implications on scaling. As emphasized before, Doomguy gets stronger and faster the more he fights and kills shit, and if he spent a literal eternity doing that, then he would be effectively infinitely stronger and faster than before, making this version of Doomguy potentially infinitely above baseline visual speed if you want to take it there. For the sake of the video's art flow, I'm just going to continue with the former argument that it's a finite amount of time. Not to say that genuine eternity interpretation doesn't work, but yeah. For feats, the trend of easy and measurable speed scaling continues here. The main one being that in Quake 3 Revolution, he fought and defeated the Arena Master twice. The Arena Master is the Vadrigar that created the Arena Eternal, which is said to be populated by the greatest warriors in all of time and space in the Quake 3 Arena Manual. Now, it is likely that the Arena Master had to travel throughout all of time and space in order to find these warriors, as the Arena Master has never shown any sort of extrasensory perception that would allow them to gain information on something from immense distances like this. This is backed up with the Vadrigar. This is backed up with the fact that they are elder gods, not even ordinary elder gods, but a special class of elder gods above typical elder gods, like Chthon and Shub-Niggurath from Quake. Lesser elder gods, like these guys, are described as horrors that lurk behind time and space. Behind in this context is basically synonym for beyond, so basic elder gods are beyond time and space. This makes sense as their boss is said to be beyond human comprehension, and as described in my last video, humans in the Idverse have become able to understand things like space-time. Before we move on, another way to make this scaling more impressive is by taking the Doom cosmology into consideration. As explained in my first video in the AP trilogy, Doom and Quake are akin to each other and likely share a multiverse. In Doom Eternal lore, it is firmly established that the multiverse is infinite, containing not only infinite universes, but also infinite timelines. If the Arena Master traveled through all of space-time, then they would have to travel across these infinite timelines, which would make him faster than regular measurable speed, and this would be consistent with that argument I made earlier about Doomguy essentially having infinite measurable speed. Lastly, as a tier 6 gladiator, he should scale above the Ranger from Quake, who is a measly tier 1 gladiator. The Ranger in the expansion pack called Disillusion of Eternity was able to keep up and surpass the Wraiths, which are these sort of ghostly creatures that are said to be capable of wandering throughout time. Ranger should further scale above them, as he was able to defeat the Overlord, who is essentially the master of the Wraiths. This is the point where things get more spicy. Just like with the previous incarnation, this version of our hero can be determined to be faster without getting into actual feats. During this period, it has been estimated that Slayer killed 96.7 quadrillion demons in an actual Slayer Club article. Admittedly, we don't know how much faster each kill makes him, but obviously it should be immense given how huge of a number that is. Moving on, this is also the point where immeasurable speed becomes way more solid. Upon becoming the Doomslayer, he became a quote-unquote time walker in the story of the Sentinels. This is backed up in the Slayer Testaments, where he is said to have fought between worlds and through time during his conquest against the demons of hell. Traveling through time by raw speed alone is the textbook example of what immeasurable speed is, so while you could probably argue against the last arguments with good faith, I think at this point immeasurable speed is pretty clear. People have argued against this, along with some of the scaling before, by saying that these immeasurable speed feats could just be the result of some special power that wouldn't make it a speed feat, but the Doomslayer is never said to have any sort of dimensional or time travel power. Same with those like the Wraith entities from before. So that statement also is just ultimately baseless and likely contradicted given the specific wording of these scans, which use words like wandering and walking, which relate to actually physically traveling to somewhere. Anyway, back to the scaling, and straight into the spicy pit I mentioned. I said before, he was on a conquest against hell, going on a rampage, killing any demon he could find. Well, in the Slayer Testaments, it is said that he, quote unquote, set forth without pity upon the beasts of the nine circles. This would mean that his rampage in hell wasn't exclusive to a single circle, as he was warring against the demons across all nine of them. This would require him to travel across between all of the nine circles of hell, essentially traveling across all of hell. As explained in my last video, hell is an infinite-sized realm that is transcendent to time, space, and dimension. This, along with other justifications explained in that video, could make hell either a realm that is fifth-dimensional or straight-up out-reversal beyond the concepts of space-time. If we go with the safer 5D interpretation of hell, this would be another immeasurable speed feat, but if we go with the out-reversal interpretation of hell, this will mean that by now, the Doomslayer reaches irrelevant speed. This is relatively early on in this conquest against Hell. This period of Doomguy where the Slayer Testament takes place, so by the end of it, he should be even faster, higher up into irrelevant speed. I believe this is a far better argument than what you would typically see. Most people, from my experience, tend to just give the Doomslayer measurable or irrelevant speed just for moving around in hell, which doesn't work because even basic humans are capable of moving around in hell, just like in any other dimension. That wouldn't be a concern with this argument I just proposed, because the Doomslayer is traveling across all of hell, which only he, besides maybe the primevals, I guess, have only shown to be capable of doing. Plus, I don't think I need to explain how traveling across a distance is totally different than moving within a distance. Sadly, Doom 2016 doesn't offer anything. The only thing we can really draw from this period is that the Slayer should be faster than before. So given that, let's just skip to Doom Eternal and its DLC. Just like with every incarnation of the Slayer, he should be faster than before. Given his kill amp and the fact that between the events of Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal, he modified the Praetor suit, increasing his mobility. Furthermore, Doom Eternal gives us some scaling that keeps up with the trend of consistent immeasurable speed scaling alive. With him being able to keep up with the Makers and should most likely scale above them. In the story of the Sentinels, the Makers are said to be beings that are capable of moving freely through time and space. Now, we finally get to the Ancient Gods, the DLC that pretty much set the Doom Powerscaling scene on fucking fire. This is the final incarnation of the Doomslayer, and of course, it is the fastest. In the Ancient Gods Part 1, you fight Sarah Maker after he succumbs to the effects of Transfiguration. Ceres at one point early on in history had wings, and with these wings, they were said to have winged through creation, traveling across the multiverse in order to do the Father's bidding. This is particularly applicable to Sarah Maker, given one of his specific jobs as the Father's right-hand man is to study and report on the progress of all of creation. This is consistent given the aforementioned stuff about the Makers, a race of aliens that the Seraphs are a special class of, basically. While the Seraphs did lose their wings at some point, the Doomslayer would still scale to this, as Sarah Maker regained his wings before his fight with the Doomslayer. As said earlier, back in the Vadrogar section, the multiverse of Doom is infinite-sized, with it being composed of an infinite number of timelines and universes. But unlike the Vadrogar, where being able to travel across the multiverse was just an arguable thing, is pretty definitive here unless you want to dwell in a game of semantics that never fucking ends. Lastly, we finally reach the Ancient Gods Part 2, where the Doomslayer stomps Daelof in a fight and kills him. Of course, Daelof would scale above everything else mentioned in this video, but he does have one feat unique to him that would make the Doomslayer even faster than even the previous irrelevant speed scaling I've mentioned before. In the Book of Seraphs, the beginning of the very first entry, which talks about how Daelof created all of existence, there's detail that Daelof swept across the void in order to create the entire Doom cosmology below the void. The multiverse, Urdak, and Hell. In my previous video, I've explained how I think it is okay to use the Book of Seraphs, albeit after some filtering to make sure the text makes sense. So if you want to know why that is, watch that video, please. We don't know much about the Void, but we can at least conclude that it's bigger than all of the previous structures like the Void and Multiverse. Previous structures like the Multiverse and Hell. I'm a moron. As they were made inside and would subsequently be contained in the Void. So basically, it should be a layer above whatever dimensional tier you think Hell is at this point. Well, is. If we go with the interpretation of Hell being infinite 5D space, the Void would be either uncountably infinite 5D or just a 6D space. But if we go with the interpretation of Hell being outerversal, which would it would baseline, then the Void would be one step above baseline outerversal. Not quite sure how the 5D to 6D argument would translate for speed, but for the outerversal interpretation, that would mean that Daelof can travel across realms that transcend realms that are beyond the concepts of dimensionality, making him even faster than just someone that will travel across that realm beyond dimensionality. Not quite as absurdly fast as Pennywise from Stephen King's It, but still remarkably swift. Anyway, that'll be it with this video. There are a number of reasons why this video came out as late as it did, but honestly I don't want to talk about them as they're all personal and have been mentally troublesome to me. If you read some of my past community posts, you would know at least one of them a genuine crisis that threatened my career in Powerscaling. And with everything said and done, I'm very uncertain about my future in this community, even more so than usual. As I am here, I want to appreciate everyone who has subscribed to this channel, all 103 of you, as of the making of this video. I'm fully aware that in the grand scheme of YouTube, it is a tiny number, but it still feels like a big milestone to me. Thank you all, and, well, please wish me luck with the rest of my endeavors. If you want to see more of my work, feel free to look through my other videos, like the recent AP trilogy, or my content on the fictional indexing wiki. I really appreciate the patience from you guys. Thank you very much, and have a good rest of the day.